Hi everyone, welcome to Raw Inspired Living. My name is Kelly. If you are returning, welcome back. If you are here for the first time, I am so grateful to have you here. At some point after we get to 45 and beyond, something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually. And then all at once, your body starts responding differently. The same food lands differently, the same exercise produces different results, and the same habits that kept you feeling well and in control for years start feeling just a little less reliable. And if you found yourself wondering what on earth is happening, this video is going to give you a real answer, not a vague reference to hormones. We're going to talk about the actual physiological explanation for why your metabolism changes in midlife and what that means for how you nourish your body from here. I want to start by saying something that I think a lot of midlife women genuinely need to hear. The changes you are experiencing in your body are not random, they are not a mystery, and they are absolutely not evidence that you've lost the plot with your health, not by any means. Right? They are very predictable physiological results of a shift in your hormonal environment. A shift that every woman goes through and that most women are never properly prepared for, and that conventional health and nutrition advice has been embarrassingly slow to address. So you are not imagining it, you are not being dramatic, and you are not the problem. Your body has entered a genuinely different phase of its life. And the sooner you understand what that phase actually involves biologically, the sooner you can stop fighting your body and start working with it intelligently. So here's the reframe I want to offer you before we get into the physiology. Your metabolism hasn't broken down. It hasn't given up on you. It hasn't decided to work against you after decades of cooperation. It has adapted intelligently and predictably to a new hormonal environment. And that distinction matters enormously because a broken metabolism is a problem to fix, and an adapted metabolism is a system to actually understand. And when you understand what your metabolism is doing and why, the path forward becomes genuinely so much clearer. So let's get into it and let's understand it. The metabolic changes of midlife begin with one primary shift, the gradual decline of estrogen. Most women know that estrogen declines in perimenopause and menopause. What most women don't know, though, is the full scope of what estrogen was doing for their metabolism while it was present at higher levels. Because it was doing a great deal, right? Quietly, efficiently, just in the background and largely invisibly. So, estrogen was supporting your cell's ability to respond to insulin. This is super important. Right? Insulin is the hormone that moves glucose from your bloodstream into your muscle cells where it becomes energy. So with higher estrogen, this process was very efficient. Glucose cleared smoothly from the bloodstream, blood sugar was stable, and your body didn't need to work hard to maintain its metabolic balance. Estrogen was also influencing where your body stored fat. So with higher estrogen, the body directed fat storage towards the hips and the thighs and actively suppressed central abdominal storage, so around the belly. So this is not cosmetic information, it is a direct reflection of how estrogen was managing your body's energy distribution system. Estrogen was also supporting muscle preservation. It contributed to muscle protein synthesis, helping your body build and maintain muscle mass that drives metabolic rate and insulin sensitivity. More muscle means a faster metabolism and better blood sugar management. Estrogen was helping protect both of these things. It was also moderating your stress response. It raised the threshold at which your body activated cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone, and it supported faster recovery when cortisol was triggered. Your body was more resilient to stress, both physiologically and metabolically, when your estrogen was higher. And estrogen also had anti-inflammatory properties, so recovery from exercise, illness, or physical stress was generally faster. The body's inflammatory response was better regulated. When estrogen was present at higher levels, all of this was happening in the background without you needing to think about it. Your metabolism was operating sort of with the hormonal tailwind. As estrogen begins to decline though, that tailwind eases and the metabolic effects accumulate, often quite gradually at first and then more noticeably as the hormonal shift progresses. Insulin sensitivity decreases, glucose doesn't clear from the bloodstream as efficiently, blood sugar becomes less stable, rising higher after meals and dropping more sharply between them, and the body has to work harder to maintain the balance that estrogen was previously supporting. Your fat distribution shifts, because without estrogen's preferential direction of fat to the hips and thighs, the body becomes more inclined to store energy centrally around the abdominal belly. This is not a failure of willpower or discipline. It is a direct physiological consequence of the changed hormonal environment. As you get towards midlife, muscle does become harder to maintain because without estrogen's support for muscle protein synthesis and with the natural decline in muscle mass that begins in our 40s, the metabolic engine that was helping your body burn energy efficiently does begin to slow. The stress response also becomes more sensitive. With lower estrogen, moderating cortisol, the threshold for cortisol activation has actually dropped, right? So moderating that cortisol becomes, less efficient. The body becomes more reactive to physiological stresses which can include things like nutritional stresses of skipped meals, low protein intake, caloric restriction, those types of things. So these changes don't happen overnight, they accumulate and they are self-reinforcing, so it's like a bit of a loop. The lower insulin sensitivity affects blood sugar stability, which affects cortisol, which affects fat storage and muscle, which further affects insulin sensitivity. So the cascade builds on itself and you get stuck in a bit of a loop. This is why midlife metabolic changes can feel sudden even when they've been developing for years. And this is why the nutritional approaches that worked before, which were actually designed for a body with a very different hormonal support system, begin to lose their effectiveness. Understanding this changes what you do about it. When you know that insulin sensitivity has decreased, you understand why consistent protein-anchored meals matter more now than they ever did before, because protein supports muscles that drive insulin sensitivity. It stabilizes blood sugar at each meal and it reduces the cortisol compensation that happens when blood sugar is poorly managed. When you know that the stress response is more sensitive, you understand why long gaps between meals, chronic restriction, and intense exercise without adequate fuel now trigger responses that they didn't trigger before. Your body is more reactive and your nutritional approach needs to account for that. When you know that muscle preservation is harder, you understand why resistance-based movement and adequate protein intake are no longer optional extras. They are the foundation of metabolic health in this phase of your life. And none of this requires extreme measures. It requires understanding and a shift in approach that matches the biological reality of where your body actually is right now. So if this has given you a clearer picture of what's been happening in your body, just know that that clarity is genuinely valuable. It really was so valuable when I fully understood what was going on. Because when you understand the physiology, you stop blaming yourself and start responding intelligently to what your body needs in this phase of your life. So in the next video in this series, I'm going to take this one step further and I'm going to look specifically at why healthy eating stops working in midlife and what that means for the way you're currently nourishing your body. And if that resonates, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to go deeper right now, my free guide, Understanding Your Midlife Metabolism, walks you through the full picture, including a little self-assessment to identify where your metabolism is right now and a simple 3-day structure to begin. And the link is in the description below. I hope that this video has given you some little clarity or a little bit more clarity on what's happening in your midlife metabolism. And I hope you will join me for the next video. I look forward to seeing you again in Raw Inspired Living.